Turn on any news station or pick up any newspaper, and you'll see something about how America is having a crisis when it comes to housing costs, overall cost of living, and wage stagnation. Things are getting more expensive, and it has some people looking for more affordable places to live. Sadly, the cheap places are often riddled with crime, but I don't think you should have to sacrifice safety for affordability, so I've been scouring the country for places that are both cheap and safe. In this video, I've rounded up 7 communities in the state of Minnesota. Number 7, St. Peter. The 12,156 residents of St. Peter seem to enjoy living there. The worst thing I could find people saying about this southern Minnesota city is that it's boring and there isn't much of a nightlife. But if you live there, you could potentially see royalty at some point. Minnesota has the highest number of Swedish Americans in the country, and apparently the King of Sweden likes to visit St. Peter from time to time, according to the city's website. St. Peter is the most expensive city on this list, but it still comes in with a cost of living that is 5% below the national average. Housing is even better at 11% below the national average. You can get a fixer-upper for $124,500, or you can get a move-in ready place for between $199,900 and $899,000. The reason that the most expensive one is even that close to $1 million is because it comes with over 17 acres of land. If not for that, it would be quite a bit cheaper. If renting is more your thing, you can find one-bedroom apartments for as cheap as $760, all the way up to 3-bedroom houses for $1,645. In addition to being affordable, it's also safe. The violent crime rate is 64% below the national average, and the chance of becoming a victim is only 1 in 83, so St. Peter is safer than 62% of American cities. The largest industry in St. Peter is educational services, with 26.9% of the jobs. This is due to the presence of Gustavus Adolphus College, 2 parochial schools, as well as the public schools, which consist of 2 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. The second largest industry, at 14.7%, is healthcare, because in addition to clinics in the community, they also have St. Peter Community Hospital, as well as the Minnesota Security Hospital, which is for the criminally insane. Rounding out the top 3 industries is manufacturing at 12.4%. Number 6, Worthington. When I make these videos, I'm often asked about which places value diversity. Minnesota is a state that was settled in large part by Norwegian and Swedish people, so a lot of the communities are white majority. However, I found one where that is not the case. In Worthington, people claiming white-only origin on the census account for just 39% of the 13,743 residents. The rest of the demographic makeup is 41% Hispanic or Latino, 8.4% Asian, 8.6% Black or African American, and 9.1% 2 or more races, and almost 1/3 of the residents are foreign-born. A lot of politicians would like people to believe that immigrants bring crime with them and cause problems, but that doesn't hold up in Worthington. For one thing, the overall crime rate is 47% below the national average, and the chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 82. On top of that, the FBI keeps track of which groups the offenders belong to, and their data shows it's mostly white people committing crimes. According to the Pioneer Press, Worthington was a dying town, and immigrants saved it. They started moving in and opening businesses like a panaderia, a taqueria, and a mini-mart. Maybe the reason Worthington is attracting new residents is that the cost of living is 16% below the national average, and housing is 34% lower than the national average. You can get a modest family home for $164,900, or a cabin-like home sitting on 5 acres for $685, with plenty of options in between. One drawback I did find to living in Worthington is that manufacturing dominates the job market. It accounts for 32.8% of the jobs, with healthcare and retail rounding out the top 3 industries. Number 5, Waseca. If you happen to be a blue-collar worker who is looking for an affordable place to live, maybe Waseca is the place for you. This southern Minnesota town of 9,150 is home to several different manufacturing plants, including Birds Eye Frozen Foods, so manufacturing is the largest industry, accounting for 22.7% of the jobs. The second and third largest industries are healthcare and retail. The median household income in Waseca is below the state and national medians at $57,022, but the poverty rate is better at 9%. This is because the dollar stretches farther here. The cost of living in Waseca is 12% lower than the national average, and housing is 35% below the national average. The most expensive home in Waseca on the current market is priced at $549,900 for 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. In some markets, you'd be lucky to find a shoebox-sized apartment for that price. The cheapest home for sale is priced at only $80,000. I'm guessing it's a fixer-upper, but for some reason the realtors in this town only post 1 or 2 pictures. The cheapest one that lets you see the interior is priced at $188,000, So homes can be found here for less than the current national average, which according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis was $416,100 for the second quarter of 2023. Waseca is also safer than many other places. The violent crime rate is 59% lower than the national average, which makes it safer than 52% of American cities, and the chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 58. Number 4, Owatonna. The largest city on this list, Owatonna, sits in the southern part of the state and has 26,470 residents. As such, you can find more amenities in this community than in many other places, like a golf course, fairgrounds, 31 parks, a few historical sites, and restaurants, which is good for those who want cheap and safe living but don't want to move to the middle of nowhere. Owatonna is a little more affluent than some of the communities on this list. They have a poverty rate of 8.8% and a median household income of $71,450. That means you can really make your budget work, since the overall cost of living in Owatonna is 9% lower than the national average, and homes are 22% lower than the national average. Homes range from as cheap as $155,000 and as expensive as $1.1 million, with all price points in between. Owatonna's three largest industries are manufacturing, retail, and healthcare, but they also have a sizable number of people working in the finance and insurance industry, thanks to the headquarters of Federated Insurance being located there. Other well-known companies within Owatonna include Jostens, which make yearbooks and high school rings, Bosch, and Cybex International. In addition, the violent crime rate in Owatonna is 42% below the national average. That gives residents a 1 in 79 chance of becoming a victim of a crime, and Owatonna is safer than 51% of U.S. cities. Number 3, Thief River Falls. With a name like Thief River Falls, you might think it sounds like a dangerous place, but it isn't. The name comes from an Ojibwe phrase that loosely translated means either stolen land river or thieving land river. This is in reference to a band of Dakota Indians who were camped out in the area and had to be chased off by the Ojibwe. This is actually a really safe community. The violent crime rate is 76% below the national average. With a population of 8,903, the chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 54, and Thief River Falls is safer than 59% of cities in the U.S. This is a place for people who like milder summers and don't really mind cold winters. Thief River Falls is in the northern part of Minnesota, about 70 miles south of the Canadian border. The average high temperature in July is only 81.2 degrees, and the average low in January is negative 3.7 degrees. And if you happen to have some Norwegian ancestry, you'll fit right in, because 50% of the residents identify themselves as Norwegian Americans, which makes this place one of the most ethnically concentrated towns in the U.S. If Thief River Falls sounds like a good fit for you, your cost of living would be 16% below the national average. Homeownership is attainable there too, because housing costs are 40% below the national average. You can get a fixer-upper for $109,000. If you're not very handy though, you can get a home that's ready to move into for just $6,000 more. Or if you've always wanted your very own lake, you can get this house that comes with one for $734,900. Number 2, New Ulm. The small city of New Ulm is a little different from the rest of the state. Whereas other communities were heavily influenced by Scandinavian settlers, New Ulm is considered to be the most German city in Minnesota. Some go so far as to say it's the most German city in America. The first people to put down roots there were part of the Settlement Association of the Socialist Turner Society, who called themselves the Turners, but they should have just gone with German gymnasts for alliteration, since that is what they were. The name of the town comes from the city of New Ulm in Bavaria, but that's not the only German thing you can still find in this southern Minnesota community of 14,035. There is also a glockenspiel clock tower in one of the parks, as well as a park called German Park. New Ulm is also home to the oldest brewery in Minnesota, the August Shell Brewery, and the city celebrates Oktoberfest every year in addition to other German festivals. If that's not your kind of thing, New Ulm is also home of the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame. New Ulm also boasts a low crime rate. Violent crimes are 88% lower than the national average. The chance of becoming a victim is only 1 in 100, and New Ulm is safer than 79% of U.S. cities. On top of that, New Ulm is an affordable place to live. The cost of living is 11% lower than the national average, but housing costs are even better at 31% below the national average. If you're looking for a cheap home, this could be the town for you, because homes range from $99,900 to $499,900. Number 1, Hibbing. Located on the northeastern side of Minnesota in St. Louis County, Hibbing is home to 16,052 residents. Arguably, the most famous resident it has ever had was Bob Dylan, who lived there from the age of 6 until he went off to college at the University of Minnesota back when he was known as Robert Zimmerman. There have also been a few professional hockey players, some politicians, and even a stand up comedian who have come from Hibbing. Oh, and the famous baseball player Roger Maris was born there, although he moved to North Dakota as a small child. A complaint from some people about the Midwest is that it lacks public transportation, but despite being a small city, Hibbing does actually have a bus system according to their website. It only makes 4 stops, unless you call them 2 hours in advance for a different pickup site, but that's better than many other comparable communities where you have to have a car to get around. Hibbing has long been known as a mining town, so the industry of mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction accounts for 5.89% of the jobs there. However, healthcare, retail, and manufacturing are the 3 largest industries. For those who do work in mining, those appear to be some of the best paying jobs in the area, with a median salary of $82,100. The median household income for Hibbing is lower than that of the state and national medians at $47,710, but the poverty rate of 12.2% is just slightly higher than that of the US's 11.6%. But what that means is that there's also a low cost of living. Overall, it's 9% lower than the Minnesota average, but housing is cheap, with it being 45% lower than the national average. The cheapest move-in ready home on the current market is priced at just $69,000. The majority of homes are under $200,000. But what if you're feeling fancy and want your very own lake? Well, you can have that in Hibbing for just $789,000. Compared to some areas of the country, that's practically a steal. This is also one of those places where you should be able to feel safe going about your business. The violent crime rate is 93% lower than the national average. The chance of becoming a victim is only 1 in 156, and Hibbing is safer than 88% of U.S. cities. I often say that while the Midwest is boring, it makes up for it with affordability. What do you think? Would you consider any of these places to live? Let me know. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm making one of these videos for every contiguous state, so hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I remain stuck in the cornfield.